The Alliance Council chamber was built to impress. Massive stone walls stretched up toward a ceiling lost in shadows. The air was thick and hot, filled with gases that would kill most species in minutes. Around the circular table sat the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Admiral Voss shifted his massive reptilian frame in his chair. His dark scales caught the red light from the lava flows visible through the chamber's windows. As leader of the Kravex people, he had survived the volcanic deathworld of Magna Prime. Nothing scared him anymore. Or so he thought. General Nyx clicked her sharp claws against the metal table. Her insect-like eyes never blinked as she studied the holographic display floating above them. The Thrix warrior had crawled out of poison gas swamps that dissolved metal. She knew what real danger looked like. 12 species made up the Deathworld, Alliance. Each came from planets that would terrify normal civilizations. They had earned their place through blood, pain, and the simple fact that they refused to die when the universe tried to kill them. "Show us this new world again," Admiral Voss said. His voice was like grinding rocks. The hologram changed. A blue and green planet appeared, slowly rotating in the dim light. It looked almost peaceful. Almost. "The humans call it Earth," said Dr. Keth, the Alliance's chief scientist. His gray skin was covered in scars from radiation burns. "Our sensors show it as a Class 9 death world." General Nyx leaned forward. "Class 9? That's impossible. Nothing intelligent could evolve on a Class 9. "That's what we thought too," Dr. Keth replied. He touched a control and the hologram zoomed in. "But look at this." The planet's surface filled the display. Vast oceans of liquid water stretched between continents. Storms larger than entire star systems swirled across the surface. Lightning cracked through clouds thick enough to crush buildings. "The water covers 70% of the surface," Dr. Keth explained. "It's not just water either. It's filled with acid, salt, and creatures that hunt in packs." Commander Zek, a four-armed warrior from the ice world of Frostbite, made a disgusted sound. "No one could survive in liquid water. It would dissolve you." "The temperatures change constantly," Dr. Keth continued. "In some places it gets hot enough to boil water. In others, it drops so low that the air itself freezes. The weather patterns are completely unpredictable." Admiral Voss studied the display. His people came from worlds where lava rivers were normal, but even they avoided water that hot. "What about the life forms?" The hologram showed new images. Massive creatures with rows of sharp teeth swimming through the deadly oceans. Land animals that could crush vehicles. Flying beasts with talons like swords. "Everything on this planet is designed to kill," Dr. Keth said. "The plants are poisonous. The animals hunt in coordinated groups. Even the insects can deliver fatal stings." "And humans live there?" General Nyx asked. "Not just live. They thrive. They've built cities, developed technology, and spread across the entire planet. They've even learned to use the dangerous life forms as food sources." The council chamber fell silent. These were beings who had survived the worst worlds in the galaxy. They understood what it meant to fight for survival every day, but Earth sounded worse than anything they had ever faced. "How many of them are there?" Admiral Voss asked. "Over 7 billion. Commander Zek's four eyes widened. "Billion? That's more than the entire Alliance population. They reproduce quickly and adapt to new environments," Dr. Keth explained. "Our long-range scans show they've learned to survive in every climate on their planet, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts." Admiral Voss stood up and walked to the window. Outside, lava bubbled and flowed like a slow river. This was his home. This was comfort. But these humans lived somewhere far worse and called it normal. "What do we know about their technology?" he asked. "Primitive by our standards, but effective. They've developed weapons capable of destroying their own planet several times over. They use controlled explosions to launch vehicles into space. Most interesting, they seem to enjoy making their technology more dangerous than necessary." General Nyx's antenna twitched with interest. "Enjoy danger?" "They have something called extreme sports, activities that serve no purpose except to risk death for entertainment. They jump from great heights, swim with predators, and race vehicles at deadly speeds." The council members looked at each other. They were warriors, survivors, beings who had faced death countless times. But they did it because they had to. These humans seemed to do it for fun. Why should we care about this planet? Asked Captain Rex, whose people lived on worlds where the gravity could crush bones. They're primitive. What use are they to us? Admiral Voss turned back to the group. Because they survived a Class 9 Deathworld. Do you understand what that means? The chamber was quiet except for the distant rumble of volcanic activity. It means they might be tougher than us. General Nick said slowly. Exactly. For centuries, we've been the strongest force in the galaxy. We've dominated because no one else could match our resilience. But these humans... They could be valuable allies, Commander Zek suggested. If they're truly as tough as their world suggests. Admiral Voss nodded. The hegemony has been growing stronger. Those soft-worlders think their advanced technology makes them superior to us. But what if we had allies who were even tougher than we are? You want to invite them to join the Alliance? Dr. Keth asked. I want to see what they're made of first. Send a diplomatic mission, make contact, let them know they're not alone in the universe. General Nick stood up. And if they refuse? Admiral Voss's eyes glowed like hot coals. Then we'll know they're smart as well as tough. But I don't think they'll refuse. From what I've seen, these humans seem to enjoy new challenges. Who should we send? Commander Zek asked. Send Ambassador Tor. He survived first contact with 17 different species. If anyone can handle humans, it's him. The hologram switched off, leaving the chamber in the red glow of lava light. The Alliance leaders sat in silence, each thinking about this new discovery. None of them realized they were about to make the biggest mistake in galactic history. 3 days later, Ambassador Tor's ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. The reptilian diplomat had handled difficult first contacts before. He had negotiated with species that breathed poison and civilizations that communicated through pain. But as his ship approached the small blue world, something felt different. His instruments showed massive energy signatures across the planet's surface, cities that glowed with power, satellites that watched everything. These humans had been busy. Open a communication channel, Ambassador Tor ordered his crew. A moment later, a voice came through the speakers. It spoke in a language the ship's computers quickly translated. Unknown vessel. This is Earth Defense Control. Please state your intentions. Ambassador Tor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Defense Control. These humans were ready for visitors. Good. He liked dealing with warriors. This is Ambassador Tor of the Deathworld Alliance. We come in peace, seeking contact with the human species. There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, sounding different somehow. More alert. Ambassador, you are cleared to approach Earth orbit. Follow the navigation beacon to Station Alpha. Welcome to our system. As his ship moved toward Earth, Ambassador Tor watched the planet grow larger on his screens. He could see the storms, the vast oceans, the dangerous beauty of humanity's home world. Soon, he would meet these remarkable beings face to face. Soon, the Alliance would learn what humans were really capable of. He had no idea that he was about to witness something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. 3 months had passed since first contact. The humans had accepted the Alliance invitation with surprising enthusiasm. What worried Admiral Voss was how quickly they had adapted to Alliance technology and customs. Captain Alex Rivera stood in the transport bay of Titan Base, the Alliance's main military station. She was the first human to serve on an Alliance vessel. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple knot, and she wore the standard Alliance uniform without any breathing equipment. The atmospheric mixture won't hurt you? Asked Lieutenant Torx, a young Kravex officer. His scales were still bright green, showing his inexperience. Most species needed full environmental suits to survive on Titan Base. Alex took a deep breath of the thick, chemical-heavy air. It's a bit stuffy, but not bad. Reminds me of Mexico City on a smoggy day. Lieutenant Torx didn't understand the reference, but he made a note in his report. The humans seemed to treat dangerous environments like minor inconveniences down in The research labs Dr. Lisa Park was causing similar concerns. The human scientist worked alongside Dr. Keth, studying samples of crystalline formations from the toxic world of Venom Prime. "You should wear protective gloves," Dr. Keth warned as Lisa reached for a sample container. "Those crystals release acid vapors that can dissolve metal." Lisa paused and looked at the container. Then she opened it and carefully lifted out a crystal with her bare hands. "It's warm," she said, turning it to catch the light. "And it smells like vinegar." Dr. Keth's gray skin turned even paler. "You can smell it. Those vapors should have burned your nasal passages." "Humans have a high tolerance for acidic substances," Lisa explained, setting the crystal down gently. "We actually consume mild acids for pleasure. We call them pickles." "You eat acid for fun?" Dr. Keth asked weakly. "Among other things, we also drink ethanol, which is technically poison, and we add capsaicin to our food, which is a chemical weapon that plants use to stop animals from eating them." Dr. Keth made several urgent notes. These humans were not just tough, they were insane. In the military training facilities, things were getting even more disturbing. Lieutenant Commander Jake Stone led a squad of human Marines through what the Alliance considered advanced combat training. The exercise took place in a chamber that simulated the surface of hellfire, a world where the ground was molten rock and the air was filled with burning particles. Alliance soldiers trained here for only 30 minutes at a time, and many suffered burns even with full protective gear. The humans had been inside for 3 hours. General Nix watched through reinforced windows as Jake's team moved through the artificial landscape. They were sweating, but they showed no signs of distress. Worse, they were actually talking and joking with each other. "The temperature in there is hot enough to cook meat," General Nix said to her aide, Captain Vex. "Yes, General. But the humans say it reminds them of something called Arizona in summer." General Nix's compound eyes focused on the display showing the chamber's internal temperature. "Increase the heat by 20%. The temperature rose. The humans noticed, but they simply removed their outer uniform jackets and continued the exercise. 30% more, General Nix ordered. Now the humans were breathing harder, but they were still moving normally. Jake Stone actually smiled as he climbed over a pile of simulated burning rocks. "General," Captain Vex said quietly, "if we increase it more, we'll exceed safety limits for Alliance species." General Nix stared at the humans. They were operating in conditions that would kill most Alliance soldiers, and they were treating it like a mild workout. That evening, the Alliance command staff held an emergency meeting in Admiral Voss's private office. The room was smaller than the main council chamber, but just as intimidating. Weapons from a dozen worlds hung on the walls, trophies from centuries of warfare. "The integration is proceeding too smoothly," Admiral Voss said, pacing in front of a window that showed the gas giant Titan base orbited. "I expected problems, cultural conflicts, adjustment difficulties. The humans are adapting faster than any species we've encountered," reported General Nix. "They're not just surviving our environments, they're thriving in them." Dr. Keth activated a holographic display. "I've been studying their biology. Their bodies are designed for survival in ways we never imagined. They have backup systems for their backup systems." "Explain," Admiral Voss said. "Take their circulatory system. If major blood vessels are damaged, smaller ones can expand to maintain flow. Their bones can heal themselves. Their brains can actually rewire around damaged areas." Commander Zek, attending by hologram from his ship, raised one of his forearms. "That's standard for most species. Not to this degree. Humans can survive losing significant portions of their organs. They can function with half a brain, 1 lung, 1 kidney. Some can even survive having their heart stopped for several minutes." The room fell silent. These beings had spent their lives fighting for survival, but they had limits. Everyone had limits. "There's more," Dr. Keth continued. "Their psychological makeup is equally unusual. They have something called stress response. When faced with danger, their bodies release chemicals that make them stronger, faster, and more alert. All species have fear responses," General Nix said. "This isn't fear, it's the opposite. The more dangerous a situation becomes, the better they perform." We've been observing Lieutenant Commander Stone's team. Their accuracy and coordination actually improve under extreme stress. Admiral Voss stopped pacing. Show me the combat simulation data. The hologram changed to show performance charts. Red lines indicated Alliance soldiers' abilities under stress, steady at first, then declining as conditions worsened. Blue lines showed human performance, rising steadily as danger increased. This is impossible, Commander Zek said. No species gets better in worse conditions. Humans do, Dr. Keth replied. And there's something else. They seem to enjoy it. Enjoy combat? Admiral Voss asked. Enjoy challenge. I've been monitoring their conversations. When the training gets more difficult, they become more enthusiastic. They use phrases like, now it's getting interesting, and finally something fun. General Nix's antennae twitched nervously. Fun? They think combat training is fun? According to Dr. Park, humans have entire industries devoted to artificial danger. They pay money to be frightened, to face simulated threats, to test their limits against imaginary enemies. Admiral Voss sat down heavily in his chair. His people had fought for survival on volcanic worlds, but they had never enjoyed it. Survival was serious. Survival was work. What about their social behavior, he asked. Cooperative beyond anything we've seen, Dr. Keth replied. But also competitive. They work together perfectly, but they also constantly try to outperform each other. It's like they're competing to be the best at cooperation. That makes no sense, Commander Zek said. It does to them. Watch this. The hologram showed footage from the training facility. Human soldiers were helping each other through obstacles, sharing equipment, covering each other's weaknesses. But they were also keeping track of who performed best, who solved problems fastest, who showed the most improvement. They're trying to win at teamwork, General Nix observed. Exactly, and they're very good at it. Admiral Voss studied the data for a long time. Outside his window, the gas giant's storms raged in patterns that had remained unchanged for millennia. Predictable, stable, unlike these humans. What's your assessment, Dr. Keth? He asked finally. The scientist's voice was quiet when he answered. I think we may have made an error in judgment, Admiral. How so? We invited them because we thought they were like us, tough survivors who had earned their strength through hardship. Dr. Keth paused. But they're not like us at all. Explain. We survive despite our worlds. We endure hardship because we have to. But humans. Dr. Keth gestured at the performance, data still glowing in the air. Humans don't just survive hardship, they use it. They turn every challenge into an opportunity to become stronger. The room was quiet except for the distant hum of Titan Base's life support systems. Are you saying they're better than us? General Nix asked. I'm saying they're different from us in ways we didn't anticipate. We're warriors who have learned to survive. They're survivors who have learned to become warriors. Admiral Voss looked out at the gas giant's swirling storms. For the first time in his life, he wondered if the Alliance had made a mistake that couldn't be undone. Continue monitoring them, he ordered. I want to know everything about how they think, how they fight, and how they adapt. Yes, Admiral, Dr. Keth replied. But sir? What? What if we don't like what we find? Admiral Voss didn't answer. But as he watched the storms rage outside his window, he began to understand why some questions were better left unasked. The humans were here, now. And something told him that the galaxy would never be the same. The alarm bells rang through Titan Base at 600 hours. Admiral Voss had called an emergency meeting of the High Command. In the main briefing room, holographic displays showed star maps filled with red warning markers. The hegemony has made their move, Admiral Voss announced to the gathered officers. His massive form cast shadows across the room as he gestured at the displays. Their fleets are massing at the neutral zone. General Nix studied the tactical information. How many ships? 3,000 vessels, more than we've ever seen them deploy at once. Admiral Voss touched a control and the display zoomed in on specific fleet formations. They have new weapons. Our scouts report energy signatures we don't recognize. Commander Zek's image flickered as his hologram stabilized. The soft worlders are finally showing their teeth. What's our response? We fight as we always have, General Nick said. The Alliance has never backed down from the hegemony. This time might be different, Dr. Keth warned from his position at the science station. Intelligence suggests they've developed weapons specifically designed to counter our natural advantages. Admiral Voss nodded grimly. Which brings us to our new allies. He looked around the room. The humans have been with us for 3 months. It's time to see what they can really do. You want to test them in combat? General Nix asked. I want to test them in simulation first. If war comes, I need to know if they're assets or liabilities. 2 hours later, Colonel Mike Foster stood in Simulation Bay 7 with his team of 12 human Marines. The bay was the size of a small city, capable of creating perfect recreations of any battlefield in Alliance history. Colonel Foster was a calm man with gray hair and steady eyes. He had served in 3 wars on Earth before joining the Alliance exchange program. His team trusted him completely. Watching from the observation deck, Admiral Voss felt nervous for the first time in decades. Show them the Battle of Korvax Prime, he ordered. The simulation bay transformed. Artificial gravity fluctuated to match the high-gravity world where the Alliance had fought their greatest victory. The air became thick with toxic particles. The ground turned into sharp crystal formations that could cut through armor. This is our most difficult combat scenario, General Nix explained to the other observers. It recreates the battle where we lost 60% of our forces but still achieved victory. And you're testing humans with it? Asked Captain Vex. The Colonel requested our most challenging simulation, Admiral Voss replied. Let's see if he regrets that request. Down in the simulation, Colonel Foster surveyed the battlefield. Enemy. Positions appeared as holographic markers scattered across the crystal landscape. His objective was simple: capture the central command post within 2 hours while under constant enemy fire. This is interesting, he said to his team over the comm system. Tactical assessment? Sergeant Bill North, his second-in-command, studied the terrain through his visor display. Gravity's about twice Earth normal. Air's toxic but manageable with filters. Ground cover is minimal. Enemy positions? Foster asked. 47 defensive points overlapping fields of fire. Classic fortress setup. Corporal Dave West, their demolitions expert, grinned behind his helmet. They've got us outnumbered 8-1. Standard Tuesday then, Foster replied calmly. Up. In the observation deck, the Alliance officers exchanged glances. Standard Tuesday? The simulation began. Immediately, the human team did something unexpected. Instead of advancing toward the objective, they spread out and began studying the battlefield more carefully. Why aren't they attacking? Captain Vex asked. They're thinking, Dr. Keth observed. Look at their movement patterns. The humans were indeed thinking, but not in any way the Alliance recognized. While Alliance tactics focused on endurance and direct assault, the humans were analyzing the battlefield like a puzzle to be solved. Sergeant North, take teams Alpha and Beta left. Use the crystal formations for cover, Colonel Foster ordered. Corporal West, I need shaped charges on the northern defensive line. Private Kate Ross, you're our spotter. Private Ross was the team's youngest member, but she had eyes like a hawk. She found a position on a crystal outcropping and began calling out enemy movements. 12 hostiles, Sector 7, 23 in the main bunker. Wait. She paused, studying her scanner. Colonel, they're using predictable patrol patterns. Time intervals? Every 47 seconds like clockwork. Colonel Foster smiled. The Alliance fought with discipline and courage, but they also fought with predictable patterns. Teams were going to dance with them. What happened next would be discussed in Alliance tactical schools for years afterward. The humans didn't just attack the enemy positions. They turned the battlefield into a symphony of coordinated movement. When enemy patrols moved left, human teams appeared on the right. When defensive fire focused on one position, attacks came from 3 others. How are they moving so fast in high gravity? General Nix asked. They're not fighting the gravity, Dr. Keth realized. They're using it. Watch how they time their jumps. The humans had quickly adapted to the heavy gravity, using it to their advantage. When they jumped, they came down hard and fast. When they took cover, they stayed low and moved like they were part of the landscape. But it was their teamwork that truly amazed the observers. The humans communicated constantly, sharing information, adjusting tactics in real time. They didn't just coordinate their actions. They anticipated each other's needs. "Corporal West, charges ready?" Colonel Foster asked. 30 seconds, sir." "Private Ross, enemy response?" "They're shifting to counter your position, but they don't see West's team." "Sergeant North?" "In position and ready to move on your signal." The charges exploded. Enemy positions that had seemed impregnable suddenly had holes in their defenses. Before the simulated enemies could react, human teams were through the gaps and moving toward the central objective. The Alliance had taken 18 hours to win the Battle of Korvax Prime. The humans completed the simulation in 43 minutes. In the observation deck, silence stretched like a physical thing. "Run it again," Admiral Voss said quietly. "Sir?" Captain Vex asked. "Run the simulation again. Different parameters. Make it harder." The second simulation recreated the Siege of Iron Gate, a battle the Alliance had lost. The gravity was even higher, the toxic atmosphere was worse, and the enemy had twice as many defensive positions. The humans completed it in 38 minutes. The third simulation was pure fiction, a scenario designed to be impossible. The Alliance tactical computer had created it as a training exercise in accepting defeat gracefully. The humans won in 22 minutes and asked if there was anything more challenging. Admiral Voss dismissed the other officers and stood alone in the observation deck, watching Colonel Foster's team as they reviewed their performance. The humans weren't celebrating their victory. They were analyzing what they could have done better. "Sergeant North, your approach to Sector 12 was too direct," Colonel Foster was saying. "Next time, try a flanking movement." "Understood. Sir, what about ammunition conservation?" "Good point. We use 60% of our supplies. In a real engagement, that might not be sustainable." They were critiquing a perfect victory because it wasn't perfect enough. Admiral Voss activated his communicator. "Dr. Keth, report to Simulation Bay 7 immediately." When the scientist arrived, Admiral Voss pointed at the humans. "What am I looking at?" Dr. Keth watched the human team for several minutes. "Evolutionary. Perfection," he said finally. "Explain." "Every species in the Alliance evolved to survive their homeworld. We became tough, resilient, hard to kill, but humans evolved to survive a world that was constantly trying to kill them in new ways. The difference being, we learned to endure, they learned to adapt. We survive by being stronger than our environment. They survive by being smarter than their challenges." Admiral Voss watched Colonel Foster demonstrate a tactical movement to his team. The human officer was patient, thorough, and completely focused on improvement. "Dr. Keth, I want you to run a projection for me." "What kind of projection?" "Assume we go to war with the hegemony. Assume we include human forces in our battle plans. What's the likely outcome?" Dr. Keth was quiet for a long time. "Admiral, I don't think you want to know the answer to that question. Tell me anyway." "We would win. Decisively. Probably within the first month of fighting." Admiral Voss should have felt relief. Instead, he felt cold fear spreading through his chest. "And after we win?" "After we win, we would have a galaxy where the most effective military force is a species that treats warfare like a logic puzzle and gets better every time they fight." Down in the simulation bay, Colonel Foster was setting up another training exercise. His team gathered around him, eager to face new challenges, ready to turn any obstacle into an opportunity for improvement. Admiral Voss realized that the Alliance had created something they couldn't control. They had invited humans to join them as junior partners, but partners who could outfight the Alliance's greatest enemies weren't going to stay junior for very long. "Cancel all further testing," Admiral Voss ordered. "Sir?" "We've seen enough, more than enough. He turned away from the observation window. And Dr. Keth? Yes, Admiral. Not a word about this to the Council. Not yet. As Admiral Voss left the simulation bay, he carried with him the knowledge that would soon change everything. The Alliance had wanted strong allies. Instead, they had found their replacements. The war began without warning. Hegemony fleet struck 3 Alliance border worlds simultaneously, their new weapons cutting through defensive positions like they were made of paper. Within 6 hours, 2 million Alliance citizens were dead. Admiral Voss stood in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Flame, watching reports stream in from the front lines. The massive dreadnought was 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that could crack planets. But even the mightiest ship felt small when facing total war. Sir, we're getting confirmation from the Outer Rim, reported Captain Vex. Hegemony. Forces have taken the Arcturus system. No survivors. General Nix's hologram flickered into view. They're using some kind of focused energy weapon. It bypasses our armor completely. Our toughest ships are dying like insects. Admiral Voss felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine fear. Not fear of death, which was always possible in war, but fear of defeat. Fear that the Alliance might actually lose. What about human forces? He asked. Are they ready to deploy? Colonel Foster has been requesting combat assignment for the past week, General Nix replied. His Marines are ready. But Admiral, after what we saw in the simulations, I know, Admiral Voss cut her off. But we need every advantage we can get. Deploy them to the Nexus Station front. Nexus Station was a critical supply hub located at the crossroads of 3 major hyperspace routes. If it fell, the Hegemony could cut Alliance territory in half. Traditional Alliance tactics would have stationed their toughest warriors there for a grinding defensive battle. The humans had other ideas. Captain Ryan Walsh commanded the human forces at Nexus Station. He was younger than Colonel Foster, but had earned his rank through 3 brutal campaigns on Earth. His unit consisted of 200 Marines who had volunteered for the most dangerous assignments the Alliance could offer. When the Hegemony attack fleet arrived at Nexus Station, they expected to face the same kind of defense they had easily broken at other Alliance worlds. Instead, they found something that shouldn't have been possible. The station was empty. Sir, we're detecting no defensive positions, reported the Hegemony fleet commander to his superior over subspace radio. No ships, no weapons platforms, no personnel. It's like they abandoned it. Impossible, came the reply. Nexus Station is too important, it must be a trap. What are your orders? Take the station, but be careful. The Hegemony fleet moved forward cautiously. Their ships were sleek and elegant, built for speed and precision rather than the brutal durability of Alliance vessels. They approached Nexus Station with weapons ready, expecting an ambush that never came. They docked with the station and began sending boarding parties. The corridors were empty, but the lights were still on. Life support was running normally. Everything suggested a hasty evacuation. That's when Captain Walsh sprung his trap. The humans hadn't abandoned Nexus Station. They had turned it into a weapon now, Walsh said quietly into his communicator. Throughout the station, hidden charges exploded. But these weren't random explosions meant to destroy the facility. They were precisely calculated detonations designed to disable the docked Hegemony ships without destroying them completely. Simultaneously, human teams that had been hiding in maintenance shafts and cargo holds revealed themselves. They moved through the station like ghosts, striking at enemy boarding parties and disappearing before counterattacks could be organized. What's happening? The Hegemony fleet commander demanded as his ships began reporting system failures. Some kind of sabotage, sir. They've damaged our engines and weapons but left life support intact. It's like they want to capture our ships rather than destroy them. That's exactly what they want, came a new voice over the communication channel. The Hegemony officers froze. The voice was calm, confident, and speaking perfect Hegemony standard. This is Captain Ryan Walsh of the Human Marines. You have 2 options. Surrender now, or find out why humans are considered the most dangerous species in Alliance space. Humans? The fleet commander's voice cracked slightly. I thought they were just a primitive species the Alliance recruited." "Sir," one of his officers interrupted, "we're detecting movement throughout the station, lots of movement." On the tactical displays, the hegemony could see heat signatures moving through every level of Nexus station, but the movement patterns made no sense. The signatures appeared, disappeared, and reappeared in places that should have been impossible to reach so quickly. "They're using the maintenance systems," another officer realized. "They know every corridor, every shaft, every hidden passage." "Captain," Walsh's voice came through the speakers again. "You have 30 seconds to respond to our surrender demand." "This is Fleet Commander Voss of the Hegemony Navy," the commander replied, trying to sound confident. "We outnumber you 10 to 1. Your position is hopeless." "Actually," Walsh said calmly, "you're trapped inside our position. There's a difference. What followed was unlike any battle in recorded galactic history. The humans didn't fight like Alliance warriors who would charge forward and absorb massive casualties to achieve their objectives. They fought like hunters who had studied their prey for months. Every hegemony move was anticipated. Every tactical decision was countered before it could be implemented. When hegemony forces tried to regroup in the station's main hangar, they found the area filled with obstacles that channeled them into carefully prepared kill zones. When they attempted to retreat to their ships, they discovered that human engineers had already disabled the docking systems. The ships were trapped, unable to detach from the station. "Sir," a hegemony officer reported frantically, "they're not trying to kill us, they're hurting us." It was true. The humans were using minimum necessary force, wounding rather than killing, capturing rather than destroying. They moved through the station like they owned it, because in many ways, they did. They had studied the blueprints, memorized every system, and turned the facility into an extension of their own tactical thinking. Watching from his flagship, Admiral Voss received reports that seemed impossible. "The humans have taken Nexus Station?" he asked Captain Vex. "Yes, sir. But they didn't defend it in any traditional sense. They used it as bait, then turned the entire facility into a trap. The hegemony fleet is intact but completely captured. Casualties? 17 humans wounded, none killed. Hegemony losses are minimal, mostly unconscious crew members who were stunned rather than eliminated." Admiral Voss stared at the tactical display. A human force of 200 had captured a hegemony fleet of 50 ships with 3,000 crew members, and they had done it without significant bloodshed on either side. "Get me Captain Walsh," he ordered. A few minutes later, Captain Walsh's image appeared on the main screen. The human officer looked tired but alert. Behind him, hegemony prisoners were being processed by human Marines. "Captain, report your status," Admiral Voss said. "Nexus Station is secure, Admiral. We have captured 47 enemy vessels and approximately 3,000 prisoners. The station's strategic position is maintained." "How?" Admiral Voss asked. "Our intelligence suggested the hegemony fleet was superior to anything we could field." Captain Walsh smiled. "With respect, Admiral, intelligence was correct about their technology. Their ships are faster, and their weapons are more advanced than ours. Then how did you win?" "We didn't fight their ships, sir. We fought their assumptions." Admiral Voss didn't understand, and his expression must have shown it. "The hegemony expected us to fight like Alliance forces," Walsh explained. "Strong, direct, willing to absorb casualties to achieve objectives. Instead, we fought like humans. Which means we turned their strengths into weaknesses. Their advanced ships became trapped cargo when we disabled the docking systems. Their superior numbers became a disadvantage when we forced them to fight in small groups. Their better technology didn't help them when the real battle was about understanding the battlefield itself." Admiral Voss felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. "What are your recommendations for future engagements?" "Give us more challenging assignments," Walsh said without hesitation. "This was a good warm-up, but we're ready for real combat operations." Admiral Voss ended the transmission and stood alone in his command center. Through the viewports, he could see the stars that had been Alliance territory for centuries. Soon, if the war went as Captain Walsh seemed to expect, those stars would be under human protection. The thought should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified him. General Nix's hologram appeared beside him. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender communications from Hegemony High Command. They want to open peace negotiations immediately." "They're surrendering?" The war just started. Apparently, news of the Nexus Station battle has reached their leadership. They're requesting terms. Admiral Voss understood. The Hegemony had seen what humans could do with minimal resources and limited support. They were intelligent enough to realize what would happen if humans were given the full backing of the Alliance war machine. "Schedule the negotiations," he ordered. "And General?" "Yes, Admiral? Make sure the human representatives are present. It seems our new allies will be doing most of the talking from now on." As General Nix's hologram faded, Admiral Voss realized that the war was over before it had truly begun. The Alliance had won. But the victory belonged to humanity, and that changed everything. 6 months after the Hegemony surrender, Admiral Voss walked through the corridors of Titan Base and no longer recognized his own command. The walls still bore the same volcanic stone. The air still carried the familiar scent of sulfur and metal. But everything else had changed. Human efficiency had infected every system. Where Alliance personnel once took 3 hours to complete routine maintenance, mixed human-alien teams finished the same work in 45 minutes. Where supply requisitions used to require 5 different approvals, humans had streamlined the process to one signature with better security than the old system. They hadn't demanded these changes. They had simply started doing things better, and everyone else had naturally followed their lead. Admiral Voss paused outside the medical bay and watched through the transparent aluminum windows. Dr. Lisa Park was teaching a class to Alliance medical personnel. The human doctor had revolutionized their approach to trauma treatment by applying what she called combat medicine principles. "The key is to treat the injury like an enemy that must be defeated," she was explaining to her mixed species audience. "Don't just repair the damage. Understand why it happened and prevent it from happening again." Dr. Keth, once the Alliance's chief medical researcher, now served as her assistant. The gray-skinned scientist hung on her every word like a student, learning from a master. Admiral Voss continued walking. In the engineering section, he found similar scenes. Tony Blake, a human engineer, had redesigned their ship construction protocols by studying how humans built things on Earth, not just for function, but to survive in hostile environments. "Every system needs 3 backups," Tony was explaining, to a group of Alliance engineers. "But more importantly, every backup needs to be different from the primary system. If one fails, you need to know the others won't fail for the same reason." The Alliance had always built tough ships. Human-designed ships were tough, smart, and adaptable. They could literally rebuild themselves during combat if necessary. But it was in the command center that Admiral Voss encountered the most disturbing change. Ambassador Rachel Green sat at what used to be the secondary command station, coordinating with Alliance leaders across the galaxy. The human diplomat had restructured their entire communication network, making it faster, more secure, and more responsive than anything they had previously achieved. "Admiral Voss," she greeted him warmly. "Perfect timing. The council meeting is about to begin." Admiral Voss took his place at the main command chair, but he noticed that most of the other Alliance leaders were looking at Ambassador Green rather than him. She had become the person they turned to for solutions, guidance, and leadership. The holographic council chamber materialized around them. General Nix appeared from her flagship, Commander Zek from the Outer Systems, and the other Alliance leaders from their various posts. But now, human advisors stood beside each of them. "The quarterly efficiency reports," General Nix announced. "Production is up 40% across all sectors. Resource waste is down by 60%. Response times for military operations have improved by 70%. "Excellent news," Admiral Voss said, but the numbers didn't make him happy. They terrified him. "There's more," Commander Zek added. "The new human-designed training programs have reduced injury rates by 80%, while improving combat effectiveness by 50%. Captain Vex, Admiral Voss's own aide, cleared his throat. "Sir, there's something else we need to discuss." "What?" "Recruitment numbers. Every species in Alliance space is requesting human advisors. The waiting list for human-led programs now extends for 2 years. Admiral Voss felt a cold weight in his stomach. And human population numbers? Ambassador Green answered smoothly. Growing steadily. Human families are adapting well to life throughout Alliance space. Birth rates are up, and our children are being raised in integrated communities across 12 different worlds. How many humans are there now in Alliance space? Approximately 2 million, with another million expected to arrive in the next year as Earth continues its colonization program. Admiral Voss did quick mental calculations. In less than a year, humans had gone from being rare curiosities to comprising nearly 10% of the Alliance's total population. At this rate, they would be the majority within a decade. What about Earth itself? He asked. Still growing, Ambassador Green replied. Current population is approaching 8 billion. They're very interested in establishing trade relationships with Alliance worlds. 8 billion. The Alliance's total population, across 12 species, was only 30 million. Earth alone had more people than the rest of the Alliance combined. After the meeting ended, Admiral Voss found himself alone with General Nix's hologram. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "I was hoping you'd say that," General Nix replied. "Private channel?" Admiral Voss activated the security protocols. "What's your assessment of the current situation?" "Honestly, we're being replaced. Not conquered, not defeated, just made obsolete." "Explain." General Nix's image flickered as she organized her thoughts. "Every human innovation makes us better at what we do. But it also makes us less necessary. They don't take control by force, they take control by being indispensable." Examples. My own command staff now includes 3 human advisors. When I make decisions, I find myself asking, what would the humans do? When problems arise, my first instinct is to consult with them. They've become the standard by which we measure competence. Admiral Voss understood. The same thing was happening throughout his own command structure. "But they're helping us," he said. "Our efficiency is up, our casualty rates are down, our technology is improving." "That's exactly the problem," General Nix replied. "We're becoming dependent on their help. And dependence becomes subordination, even when nobody intends it." Admiral Voss walked to his viewport and looked out at the stars. "What's the alternative? They haven't threatened us. They haven't made demands. They're model citizens and allies." "I know. That's what makes this so terrifying." That evening, Admiral Voss visited the station's recreation area. Human families were there, children playing games that looked like military training exercises. Alliance young ones joined in eagerly, learning human games, human strategies, human ways of thinking. He watched a human child, no more than 8 years old, teach a group of young Alliance members how to play something called Capture the Flag. The rules were simple, but the strategy was complex. The human child naturally took command, organizing teams, assigning roles, adapting tactics in real time. The Alliance children followed her lead without question. It seemed natural to them. Admiral Voss realized he was looking at the future. A generation of Alliance citizens who would grow up thinking like humans, solving problems like humans, leading like humans. He found Dr. Keth in the medical bay, working late on research that had been inspired by human innovations. "Doctor, I need your honest assessment of our situation." Dr. Keth looked up from his work. "Which situation, Admiral? Our military position? Our technological advancement? Our social integration? Our survival as an independent alliance?" Dr. Keth was quiet for a long moment. "Admiral, we invited humans because we thought they were like us, tough survivors who had earned their place through hardship. But they're not like us. No, we're warriors who learn to survive. They're problem solvers who learn to fight. We adapt to our environment. They adapt their environment to themselves." Admiral Voss sat down heavily. "What happens next?" "I think we become part of something larger," Dr. Keth said. "Not through conquest, but through evolution. Humans don't destroy what they encounter, they improve it, optimize it. integrated into something better. And if we resist? Resist what? They haven't attacked us, haven't made demands, haven't threatened our independence. They've just been helpful. Admiral Voss understood the trap they had fallen into. Humans had made themselves necessary not through force but through competence. They had become the solution to every problem, the answer to every challenge, the standard by which success was measured. The Alliance will survive, Dr. Keth continued, but it will be a human-led alliance, not because they conquered us, but because we chose to follow them. As Admiral Voss returned to his quarters, he passed through corridors filled with humans and Alliance members working together. They were building something new, not human civilization, not Alliance civilization, but something that combined the best of both. It should have made him proud. Instead, it made him understand why some invitations could never be withdrawn. The Deathworld Alliance had invited humans as junior partners. Within a year, they had become indispensable advisors. Within a generation, they would be natural leaders. Not through conquest, but through competence. Not through force, but through excellence. Not through war, but through being so useful that life without them became unimaginable. Admiral Voss stood at his window looking out at stars that had been Alliance territory for centuries. Soon they would still be Alliance stars, but the Alliance would be something entirely different. Humanity had arrived not as conquerors, but as collaborators. And that, Admiral Voss realized, was far more dangerous than any army could ever be. The invitation had been extended in hope of gaining strong allies. Instead, they had invited their own transformation. And there was no going back